It's the Suncast podcast, covering the Sun Conference and all its sports.
What's up, Suncast Nation? It's your boy Manny here, and I'm going to bring you a nice little recap episode here on Suncast. It's just going to be me today. Reagan had to handle some business, being a GA and a grad student and all of that. So I'm just going to be riding it solo today. He will be back for the next episode as we preview the weekend to come and recap the midweek stuff. But I'm going to be touching on pretty much everything that happened on an eventful past weekend here to wrap up August and pretty much head us straight into conference play for all the fall sports aside from football. Pretty much every other men's soccer, women's soccer, and volleyball getting ready to start their Sun Conference regular season portion of their schedule. I'm going to touch briefly on football. Obviously, Josh will be the one who covers all of football. So he's going to hopefully be on next episode, kind of deep dive what happened this past weekend with mainly Southeastern and Ave. The St. Thomas game was postponed due to weather. Unfortunately, it was a crazy rain-filled day Saturday early afternoon. So that was postponed, unfortunately. But quick kind of synopsis of those two games for Southeastern. Big win over Faulkner, and Ave felt like they just kind of ran out of gas of that. For Southeastern, you had Mikkel behind center, 4 for 5, 62 yards, one TD. Did have a rushing TD according to the stats, so that was a great thing to see for them. For the carries, Parker, 6 of them, 68 yards, 11.3 average. I think he had a very good, solid game. And then receptions, Reyes with two receptions, 46 yards, and 1 TD. Again, we're definitely gonna let Josh kind of deep dive from what he saw. Hopefully next time he will be on with me and we can talk a little bit about what happened this past week and then kind of head on what is to come, especially on Thursday when I'll get to that when we preview the midweek stuff here. But I'm going to kind of start with volleyball. Volleyball had their final non-conference series and games this past weekend. All the programs were in action. I'm going to start with New College, mainly because I was unable to find any stats on them as of right now. They just kind of went 1-2 throughout the weekend. Very solid. I think they're going to be a team that once conference starts might take a couple bumps early on, but overall I'm excited to see what they bring. I'm excited to see how they're going to kind of add a new element to the conference. I like them. I think they're a spoiler type of team. I do think they will be able to maybe catch a team slipping here and there, or I'm not even gonna say slipping. I think they'll be able to catch a team off guard from the sense of they are prepared. They understand that they're joining a conference that's on the rise, a conference that has some of the top teams. Obviously, one of them we'll get to in a minute here, but some young teams as well that are eager to put themselves in that same category. Overall, I think New College, I'm excited to see what they're going to bring, and I'm excited to watch them and really get to know what this program is going to be providing for the conference. Start with Warner. Kind of quick on a few of these first few reviews from this past weekend. Warner 1-3. I think the thing with them is going to be clean volleyball. You had one game where you had more attack errors than kills. You had one game where you were just short of going even in both categories. Overall, I think that's going to be their biggest takeaway. I think that's what they're going to need to kind of focus on. You had 27 service aces, but you had 31 service errors. Those are the type of numbers that are just not going to work in this conference. Warner is another team that is looking to play spoiler. To play spoiler, you're going to have to play pretty much your best game, every single set, every single rally. And it's a hard task. It's obviously a hard thing to ask from a team, but that is where I feel like the Warner Royals are kind of heading, or where they need to be heading, better said, right now. And offensively, who can be that go-to? The entire weekend, 4 games, your highest kill count player was 8. That's just not going to get it done. When we talk about offensively, I do think that they have a good setter, and the MVP for me for the Warner team, LeBoy, in that position. 71 assists, 38 digs for the weekend again in the 4 games that they played. So I'm very excited for her and what that is going to allow for the Warner team to kind of develop around her. They just need to find not even one, but just a few players, because to win in this conference against the top teams, the Kaiser, the Southeasterns, the St. Thomases, you're going to need at least one, probably more like 2 players who can get to about 10 kills a game. And again, that's a big ask for sure, but that's kind of what they need to be to break to be a playoff team. I think their goal should be make the playoffs. I think there is a world where they do make it. They can make it, but you got to clean up the errors, and you got to be able to have 1 or 2 players that When going gets tough, when the other team's on a run, when the other team just seems to be getting point after point, who can we go to say, okay, we're going to get a point here, we're going to get it back, we're going to make sure to get these services over the net and give ourselves a chance, because you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot with those type of mistakes. I think that's where the Warner Royals are heading. Kaiser, 5-0. This team is different than last year's team. They're pretty, I would say they're better where they are now than where they were last year at this point. I think going into conference play, I'm more confident in this group than I was in last year's group. And last year's group was absolutely tremendous, no doubt about it. But like I mentioned in the volleyball preview, they've had some highs, they had some lows, and their highs are really high, but their lows are really low. So I think this team is giving me a more consistent Kaiser team. And that's the dangerous thing for the Seahawks. I think if you're consistent, they are still the best team to knock off the Bobcats. They are still the team that I would pick if you forced me to pick a team aside from the Bobcats to win the conference. A big reason for that, Mackenzie Pryor. She's emerged as that number one option. She had 80 kills in the 5 games this past weekend. I think she is going to be in contention for player of the year. I think she's going to be an attacker of the week, excuse me, pretty much every other week, it feels like. I think she's going to have the numbers. The team is going to have to perform around her. Obviously, we know what Hannah Heidi is going to give us. Again, consistency is the name of the game. They've been consistent pretty much this entire non-conference slate. They've dominated the team they need to dominate. They've beaten some very good teams. They've come away with some very good wins. But this is what it comes down to now. They definitely have a chip on their shoulder. There's no question about it. I'm excited to see what Seahawks brand of volleyball we get as conference starts this week. They understand that they are going to be determined as a NAIA national team by what they do in the conference, and specifically against, obviously, the Bobcats and Southeastern. I do believe the Seahawks need to win the conference to get a tournament bid. With that said, though, if they can make it to the championship, they can give the Bobcats a run for their money. I'm confident that they'll at least be in the running. We'll see about everything else, but the goal should be to get the conference championship. That is the goal for the Seahawks. I don't think there's anything less would feel like it was not the year they wanted. So if they can stay consistent, they need to be consistently getting better. And that's where I really am focusing on when I say the word consistent. I don't mean stay where you are, you're perfectly fine where you're at. I mean they continue to get better while still doing the little things right, while still keeping the errors down, while still making sure that the defense is where it needs to be, that front line is where it needs to be. I like the Seahawks right now. The question is, will it continue to go? And will those lows either be less in the amount of times they happen, be less low, not as low? And how many highs and how long will those highs last is the question for the Seahawks. St. Thomas, 3-0. And actually, I think I'm going to save them for last. I'm saving them for last because I definitely have a lot to say about that one. So we're going to skip them for right now. We're going to go to Ave Maria. A rough weekend, 0-3 for the Gyrenes, but they had some really good competition. They played against 3 receiving votes teams. It's a situation where I like the fact that they schedule those games. Why? It's a good test for what you're going to play against. The Gyrenes are still a relatively young program. They had some bright spots last year. They beat Kaiser at Kaiser. They gave the Bobcats a run for their money at home. So I like what they had. But to beat those teams, you have to be able to have experience against those type of teams. Again, receiving those teams will give you that experience. With that being said, it's the offense for me. Is there enough of the offense? Another team similar to the Royals, where you're kind of struggling to get to a 10 kill player, game to game. And if you're not going to get a player who can give you a 10 kill performance like some of these top teams do have, can you get a roster, a depth of players that can all get you 8 to 9 kills a game? If that's the case, or 8 to 9 kills a set. If that's the case, your offense is going to be fine. You're going to give yourself a great chance when it comes down to those last few points, when you're trying to make a last-ditch effort in those sets. If you can't, if you've got an 8 and drops off to a 5, a 4, like those are the type of numbers that just can't happen. If you're going to go for the depths around your setter, that's great. I've seen it work, but you have to make sure that the depth is there and consistently there. The offense has had high notes, but they're still searching for that first win, and I think the offense is where it's going to come from. Defensively, I like what they have. I like the setter rotation. I like what they do when they now on those first hits and the services. I just think it's the offense. Can the offense find rhythm, stick with that rhythm, and build on that rhythm? That's where I'm concerned right now for the Gyrenes going into conference play. From them, I'll go to the Florida Memorial Lions, another team that went 0-3 this past weekend. I think they're still figuring it out. I think they had some good moments. I think the Lions, are going to be a team that they're going to be in the playoff hunt. They're going to be in the playoff. That's still I'm still hoping on that, or picking them to be in that playoff picture. I just need to make sure that they find those grooves and build on those good moments that they did have. For the two teams that went 0-3 this past weekend, I think the Florida Marlin Lions came out of it a little bit better collectively. I think the Gyrenes had better experience, again, playing against those receiving votes teams. But overall, I like what the Lions have. I like the Gyrenes have. I just think both teams are kind of at different types of points. Again, the Lions still first year coach, still getting used to everybody around them, but they have some ballers over there. They got some players, and I think that they're going to be able to figure it out. And once they get into the thick of this conference slate, you'll really see them all come together. From the Lions, I'm going to go to Weber. Another team that went 1-2. I think their best game was actually against the Lions in a non-conference matchup between the two teams this past Sunday. 34 kills, 13 errors, 10 service aces, and 8 total blocks for the Weber Warriors in that win against the Lions. I think that is the type of team we're going to see. This team is still the scariest team to me in the conference. They are the team that, like I mentioned before, if they find themselves in the semifinals, in the conference championship, I won't be surprised. Take a second, look who had a great year, but I wouldn't be surprised when it comes down to that moment, because this team, they've had some tough schedules. They had some tough games in these schedules, and which is part of it. Sometimes the records in non-conference games in any sport, you can't really put too much stock into it, because coaches, they schedule these games for a reason. I like the Weber Warriors. I like what they're at. Nadia Reed is going to have another all-conference season. That's a done deal. She's good for a double-double, 10 kills, 10 digs, almost every game. You can pen her in for that. Who else will be in that all-conference hunt or get an all-conference nod, offensively speaking? I think Hunt and Johnson, they are two players that I have kind of seen pop up in the scoreboard, seen some of the games that I'm able to catch, some of the clips. I like them being the three-headed monster there of Reed, Hunt, and Johnson. Can they all do it at the same time consistently? That's going to be the biggest thing. That's going to be the biggest thing. I think the MVP for them is their setter, Mariela. There's 67 assists and 13 digs in 3 games. Very good numbers. Can the offense catch up to the defense? Which is why I talked about helping Nadia Reed, or another source of offense for the Warriors. Defensively, the team, I think they're going to be arguably up there as one of the best teams in the conference. We talk about frontline presence. 37 total blocks in 3 games. That's good. That's over 10 blocks a game. Like that's hard to do. And they have the length, they have the height, they have the athleticism to be consistently there and be a presence. Your defense can be absolutely astronomical, and blocks here and there can result in points, but you still need to find offense in your own side of the net. And if the Warriors can do that, the scare factor goes up a lot higher for them. Still pick them in. I'm safe bet make the playoffs. I think they're that dark horse for me to make a conference deep run. Just under the Fire in my opinion, but I like where they're at going into this. They're going to be again opening conference play this weekend, so I'm excited to see them. Wrap it up with my Bobcats. I'm gonna put on my St. Thomas hat real quick here. 3-0 on the weekend, perfect, best start in program history. 12-0 going into conference. 6-0 against top 25 teams or receiving votes teams. Upset against Missouri Baptist. Upset against Park University. A sweep against Missouri Baptist. 3-1 set count win over the Pirates of Park University. This team should be in the top 12 in the nation once the polls come out on Wednesday. I don't see how they can't be. They're 19 right now. Again, you sweep Mobab. Down year, not for Mobab, doesn't matter. You still swept them to start the season. And you did it in emphatic fashion, I might add. I know the game itself was back and forth, but there was always a feeling of that game, the Bobcats are going to win. Like there was never a point where I thought Mobile was going to really come away with one. He played against Park, and that was that Park game I saw the Bobcats needed that core experience. I said on the broadcast, Coach Whitney is very she doesn't show a lot of emotion typically in regular season games because she understands the mission at the end. She understands what this is part of the journey. But she was as animated in that game as I've ever seen her. And that was the same animation that I see in playoffs, in the postseason, in the opening rounds last year against Marion. That's why the Bobcats came out the way they did. They had an absolutely amazing game against Park University. They had an absolutely great non-conference late in their season. And the reason I kept saying for everybody else, for Ave, Warner, Kaiser, Weber, I say for South, I say for everybody in the conference, consistency, because the Bobcats are the most consistent team right now. They just are. They're led by Taylor Barnes, who I believe is firmly in her Player of the Year campaign right now. She has a career high kills with 18 against Park University. She does it on offense and defense. She wins that game for St. Thomas with a block, a solo block. Just her taking down the middle blocker of the Pirates, two hands back on the other side. She made big plays when they need to be done all weekend against Mobile, which went the distance, against Park. She's done it all season. Taylor Barnes is, I believe, going into the conference part of everybody's schedule, the favorite for Player of the Year. I firmly believe it. I'm not going to say she's my pick right now because I want to see how everything plays out, but I believe she's the front runner. I believe Mackenzie Pryor from Kaiser is right behind her. I think those are the two that we're going to have, kind of similar to last year. I think that's my pre-conference regular season picks. I think both have put up the numbers, so that's why I can't really make a decision right now. If you ask me to decide, I would probably go Taylor just because, again, she does it on both sides of the net. This team to me is deeper than last year's team, I believe. They're more consistent, which is a scary thing to say. And last year's squad had some of the best Bobcats to come through the St. Thomas program. And this doesn't happen without them because now everybody on that program right now has experience in these moments. A Taylor, Sanaa, Bianca, Bruno, Berkey, Hope, everybody that has returned from last year's team experienced all this. So it's not new to them. That has been the biggest thing that I have seen from their entire non-conference run. They are so consistently calm. They're so consistently focused at the task in front of them. That's why it's going to be hard to beat them. And if you're going to beat them, I promise you it will be consistency. You're not, yes, every now and then you might hit a great stretch of performances from the team, from a player, but consistency is the name of the game right now in the volleyball scene at the Sun Conference because the best team, the reigning regular season, the reigning conference champions, have been the most consistent week after week, game after game. They consistently have double-figure kills in multiple player performances. Maria Ramos has come in and she's had an absolutely great start to her Bobcat career. Carolina Cruz is playing what Hope played last year as that spark in the third set, and she's come in and sometimes even leads the team in kills. This team is the team to beat. And then Peyton Berkey to have a 65 assist game against Park when your team puts up 67 assists and you have 65 of them. This team is going to be hard to beat, but I don't think there's any other way to beat them unless you're consistent. That's it. And the most consistent team is the Bobcats. We'll see how this conference plays out. They are my pick for the regular season. They've been my pick for the regular season. They've been Reagan's pick for the regular season. They're going to continue to be that pick. As Reagan likes to say, teams, there's your bulletin board material. Be consistent. and you will give yourself your best chance. Because you have to know the Bobcats will be consistent. And that's why they're the most dangerous team right now, and that's why they are the team to beat in the Sun Conference. We'll go from volleyball now to men's soccer. Uh, STU, we'll start. We ended with St. Thomas volleyball. We'll start with St. Thomas soccer, men's soccer. They continue their strong start to the season. They have that big win over number 13 Grace. I like where they're at. I saw obviously their home opener against FNU. I think they are pretty much where you would expect a team that finished in the semifinals of last year's NAIA tournament, a team that's ranked number 2 right now in the nation, obviously tied number 2. I'll be technically correct there. The possession has been so impressive for me. They dominate the ball, that they make sure to continue to wear teams down. I was talking about it earlier. They're a lot different than women's soccer in St. Thomas, and I'll get to them in a second here. But they play to their strength, which is just, again, dominate the ball, connect passes, and work your way through the pitch. And when that team falls asleep, which is what happened against FNU, when that team is a little too eager, when they feel like they have a moment to gamble, you make them pay. A long ball here, you got to capitalize on your set pieces in the corner kick. I want to see them do a little bit better set pieces from the free kick, especially at a goal distance from about 30 or 35 yards. They have plenty of people on that team who can make that a dangerous area for them. Bobcats are they they're they're where they need to be. They're where they need to be. I don't think there's much to be said about them because we kind of knew what they were going to do. They're another team that's a lot of teams in the Sun Conference right now, especially in the fall part of the year. They are not overlooking the regular season. They understand that the men's soccer scene here is as good as it's ever been, if not better. They understand that the conference tournament is not going to be a cakewalk. They know that from last year, but they're also focused on the NAI tournament. They're again, it's not. I don't see that happening. But if the conference doesn't go the way it goes, you still have the number 2 team in the nation. They're not going to fall out of the top 25. They're going to be there. Their focus right now is build every day, and when the conference comes, which is right around the corner, you dominate it, so that way you go into the postseason for the conference and the NAI tournament on your best foot, and you're not feeling like you could have done more. You want to finish the conference out. You want to be able to win that title, both regular season and tournament. I think that is their goal, to sweep both. They did one last year. They did what they needed to do, almost a perfect season in conference. Then you fall short in the postseason. You can't give yourself that. You can't feel that again. You have to understand what that feeling was to lose on your home pitch in PKs to the rival team. And then now this year with conference starting, you go in with the mindset of that can't happen again. You go into the mindset of you want to be perfect. I wouldn't be surprised if they are. I don't think it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go perfect in the conference this year. I really don't. This is the team to beat still. I believe that. But the team that I'm going to talk about next, they have something to say about that. Bobcats are right where they need to be. They obviously played. I'm recording this Monday night, so they obviously already played against Lindsey Wilson. I'll get to that in the midweek keys here in a moment. They did what they needed to do in non-conference. They've got one non-conference game left. I believe it is against Barry, so it's a good test before conference officially starts for them. I want to see them go 4-0 in the preseason non-conference part of their schedule. I want to see that. I want to see them play Barry, and I want to see them win that game, and I want to see them go in on their best foot forward. Meanwhile, the other side of things, that team I talked about, Kaiser. They were able to force a tie against Bethel, number 5 Bethel. Technically, Bethel was winning when the Seahawks scored their goals. So I think that was a good test. I think the conference overall has been tested early, to be honest with you. You also had SCAD forcing a tie against Life University. We're seeing the conference kind of put themselves in behind the 8 ball in some of these games, but then come through in the end in some gritty fashions. And I like to see that for sure. Again, talking about a conference that could be a red banner producer this year. For Kaiser, I like where they're at. I don't know if it's necessarily where I thought they would be at this point. Not to say they have, a bad record or anything like that, but I would like to see them better. I think that they could have another notch for a team that won the conference last year at the tournament and in dramatic fashion. Again, PKs at St. Thomas. It's very hard to do that. I think they still have another gear. Um, Long season, so marathon, not a sprint. I want to see that gear kind of shift though. It's time. I'm not saying I was expecting a win against Bethel. I think a tie is honestly what is not something that is a shock, against two great teams, two teams that are national contenders, two teams that really understand the long-term picture. I still kind of thought the Seahawks had it. I think the Seahawks could have. I think they feel like they could have. So Seahawks are at this point in a good spot. I'll say good spot. I'm not gonna say an okay. Like they're in a good spot. Need them to turn that next gear because I think they have it in them and they're gonna need it to run through this conference if they want to repeat. If they want to be the team that actually hosts this year, that's a possibility, complete possibility. I get the Bobcats number 2 in the nation. I get all this, and I'm a Bobcat. And everybody knows what I do with my Bobcats. Seahawks have a good chance. Seahawks have a more than a puncher's chance. This is a heavyweight fight that will go back and forth. We're gonna keep tuning in to how the Seahawks do, how the Bobcats do, those head to heads, who looks better, who's taking advantage of these little things, stuff like that. Those two teams will be running with each other the entire year. Again, there's a conference behind them though. Mentioned the Bees forcing a tie against Life. Southeastern, they big win coming, a big win today against Montreat. That's why I also say they need to be on their P's and Q's throughout the conference run, because not only are you looking at each other, you're looking at teams behind you who are hungry to get in the race that they are in right now. So that's my kind of outlook right now for men's soccer going into their start of the conference. Meanwhile, on the other side, for women's soccer, the three Bs from this past weekend really had dominant wins, starting in the later end of the week. The Birds, the Bobcats, and the Bees. Dominant wins in their respective games. Kaiser 5-0 against Weber. St. Thomas 6-0 against FNU. The Bees 6-0 against Middle Georgia. Dominant. I like that. I like that. Kaiser, similar to how I was talking about with men's soccer, St. Thomas, possession. They dominate the ball, but they're a little bit more aggressive in the sense of they're looking for that through ball. They're looking to kind of find that window and make the defense pay long runs, force the defense to play wide in that back four. I think that's what really gave them the opportunities against Weber. Again, non-conference game in that opener for the Seahawks. Corner kick's going to be something that I think teams got to limit the Seahawks to because they've proven to be very efficient in them. But the Bobcats, I think it's just a matter of the better team. And I like to see that, though. I like to see that they understand they were the better team. They understand that lightning delays and all this other stuff didn't matter. They went out and they put on a record performance, literally. Gabriela Semino tying the most goals in the game, along with her coach. Megan Velasquez sets the assist record for a single game with 4. That's what I expected from the Bobcats. I like to see that. I like to see that last year they always gave me the mindset of a team that we want to prove, like we want to be there. We feel like we should be there. Now when I see them play and I see them, the way that they move on the pitch, the way that they act, the way that they just conduct themselves, they look like a team that knows we deserve to be here and we're going to prove it now. They were a team that wanted to prove that they should be here. Now they're a team that they know they should be here and they're going to prove it. And that's a dangerous shift in mindset. And obviously the Bees, it's the Bees. 6-0 against Middle Georgia. You handle business. Like Reagan always says, though, it's about the long term. It's about the big picture. And I like to see that against teams that they should dominate because it lets me know that when time gets tough and when the adversity hits, because it will hit, they're tested mentally and they're going to be there for it. Southeastern, they force a tie against number 14 in the country. I like the 7-19. I like the 7 shots on goal out of the 19 shots that they took and 10 corner kicks. If they can do that, again, 10 corner kicks is a lot, but if you're pressing the defense, if you're forcing them to their goal line, if you're forcing them on their back foot, you're putting them in situations where they have no choice but to kick the ball out and give you a corner kick, take advantage of it. As long as you can take advantage of it, that's what I think is going to benefit the Southeastern squad. I like them. I really, really, really think they are they're going to be a team that I would pick as a dark horse for the conference. If they can stay aggressive, that's my biggest thing. If they can stay aggressive, I like them in the long term. I think they'll build off that aggression. 7-19, it's a lot of shots, a lot of shots on goal. I don't know if you can bank on that necessarily, but if that's the type of mindset you have going into every game, I like where the Fire women's soccer team is going to be heading. They're gonna again another team ranked, I believe, number 20 in the nation right now. Kind of flying under the radar, I would say. I think the Bobcats, the Seahawks, and the Bees all were the best teams out of non-conference. Southeastern was right after them. Not a gap, but they're just still after them, I feel like. Another team I feel like has another gear, and once they find it, I like them to be a real contender and a real player here. Ave, just a little gutsy win, thanks to some insurance goals. Thanks to an insurance goal, I should say. A spoiler team. I mentioned that in volleyball, for me, the scariest team is Weber, because if you told me this, and then if you told me they're in the finals, not the biggest shock in the world. Ave is that team to me for women's soccer. Now, if you told me they're in the conference championship, I would say, wow, what a season. But something about their mindset, their just never say die attitude, and to understand that we're up 1-0, we're gonna stay on, we're gonna go get that second goal, and that's the goal that's gonna end up giving us the victory. That's kind of what I see. I think the Giants know that no matter if they're up in a game, no matter if the opponent is one that they should beat, they're gonna go into that mindset. They're gonna go into that game, I should say, with a chip on their shoulder, feeling like they're the underdogs, feeling like, and to be fair, 9 times out of 10, they're gonna be the underdogs this year. Again, you have Kaiser, St. Thomas, SCAD, and Southeastern. I think the Gyrenes are that next team, but I don't know if they feel like that. I think that they still feel like the conference is kind of overlooking them, and I would get that sentiment. I understand that sentiment, but I feel like the Gyrenes will be that team that kind of shocks some people. Last year was St. Thomas. This year, I think it'll be the Gyrenes. I really do. St. Thomas kind of wrapped up their non-conference tying against St. Francis. Nothing much to talk about that game. I think the Bobcats would have liked to have that victory, but you didn't lose it. You didn't lose the game. You'll take the tie, especially on the road. So I think we're just gonna leave it at that for women's soccer. That's the midweek weekend recap, kind of from Thursday until Sunday. Couple midweek keys here. I mentioned Southeastern men's soccer beat Montreat 3-0. St. Thomas men's soccer beat Lindsey Wilson 3-1. Kaiser loses to Cumberland's 3-0. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, where I feel like Seahawks, I understand losing to Cumberland's in the sense of another team that's ranked top 25. 3-0 is what I don't like. I want that to be a little closer. I think they're a better team than what they've shown so far. And that gear needs to be switched now. Not panic button time, but now. For St. Thomas, keep doing what you're doing. 3-1 against a team who 2 years ago, I believe now, was the team that knocked you out of the national tournament. You handle business with that matchup in Southeastern. I would say not like an emphatic or anything like that, but it's a little bit of a statement. 3-0 against Montreat. I like that one. I like the performance there. To understand that if you take every game as a challenge, as a opportunity to make a statement, before you know it, there's an RV next to that S in a couple weeks here. Would be the craziest thing in the world? Probably not. Probably not. Wednesday, I mentioned a little bit earlier, volleyball polls will be coming out for the second round of the polls. Firmly believe South St. Thomas should be number 12. And I'm being generous, because if you sweep number 11 at the time and you beat number 8 3-1, I don't care who's at home on both of them. I don't care. If you do that, you got to at least go up a couple spots. Some people told me top 10. I think that's a heck of a jump from 19 to 10, almost 10 spots. I don't think 7 is that big of a jump, especially because I'm hearing a lot of these other teams in the top 25, above the Bobcats, I should say, kind of lost some games here and there. And also considering the Bobcats are 6-0 against top 25 receiving votes teams. Some of them sweeps. I think there's only been one game that went 5 the distance, and that was Benedict Mesa in the Kaiser tournament. Other than that, it's either been 4 or sweep. Give them that number. They're gonna go up. Everybody knows they're gonna go up. I think 15. If I'm being honest, 15 is the lowest I'll go. 4 spots. I don't think that's easy. That's a big ask. I want those 3 more. I want that number 12. I think they'll get it though. Women's soccer conference play starts for them on Wednesday. Wednesday in the conference. Weber at New College. I'm gonna play Reagan here, and I'm gonna go with the Warriors in that one. I'm gonna go with the Warriors in that one. I don't think it's something against New College. I know it is on the road, but I like Weber in that matchup. I think it's gonna be a close game though. I'd say it's a 1 goal difference. I think Weber +1 in the goal department, but I just think the Warriors, after what the Seahawks did to them, I think they want to come out and say that was an off day, that was a fluke. Uh, um, Again, that's another team that's ranked top 25 in the nation. Their Seahawks are the Seahawks, looking to make a national championship run. So I don't think that's the Warriors team we're going to see night to night. I think it was just a team that got caught on the back foot against a team that was forcing you into your back foot. So I like the Warriors on the road here, +1 against New College. Thursday for football. Number 1, Kaiser starts their title defense. They will be on the road, I believe. Again, hopefully the later week episode here, we can get Josh on and we can talk a little bit about that matchup, what he expects to see. Maybe if it's after, we'll talk about how the game went. We also have Friday, number 16, SCAD versus Receiving Votes, Georgia Gwinnett. That is women's soccer. Big top 25 matchup there. I like SCAD. I think SCAD needs that win for I want to say morale boost, but I think they the ones that need that win. Obviously Georgia Gwinnett is the underdogs in that matchup. SCAD should be able to handle business. So we would like to see that. And I know Reagan will definitely like to see that. And I would too. I think SCAD would really benefit from a just mental aspect going into conference play against some teams that are receiving votes, like the Bobcats. I believe they're literally 26th right out of the top 25. Kaiser, who's in there, Southeastern, who's in there. Some of them are actually ahead. I think Kaiser's ahead of SCAD. So I think SCAD really needs that one. And then volleyball conference starts Friday. Conference play, Southeastern at Florida Memorial. Got Southeastern in that one. I have Southeastern. I'll probably we'll definitely talk a little bit more about that one in the midweek recap, midweek preview, weekend preview episode later this week in the second episode for the week. But just a quick thing, I think Southeastern in that one. I'll say it again there when we have a record again with Reagan, and I'll give kind of my 2 cents on why. But I do think Southeastern's got this one on the road, and they'll start their conference conference part of their season 1-0. And then obviously we'll have the weekend preview coming up with more conference games, with more action overall from the fall. Overall, been 2 weeks since school came back, going into September now. I'm as excited as ever. I think we are hitting a real golden age when it comes to Sun Conference athletics. No matter what sport you want, no matter what sport you watch, no matter what school you support, at the end of the day, everybody in the Sun Conference can appreciate good entertainment and good competition, and that's what all these sports are doing. That's what all these teams and all these programs are doing. No matter how your team is doing at that point, you're still gonna want to tune in because you never know what could happen. We've seen the craziest things happen. We've seen upsets. We've seen all of it. Go out to these games. Go out to these games. Take it all in, whether it's men's soccer, women's soccer, volleyball, football, whatever it is. Sun, rain, wind, whatever. Try your best to go catch a game, even if it's on a live stream, the live stats. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. But that's going to do it for this episode of Suncast. Make sure you follow us on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, turn on that notification bell. Follow us, or give us a review on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you're listening to this podcast, or Apple Podcast, I should say, wherever you guys are listening to these things. Make sure you follow us on X, on Instagram. And yeah, man, that'll give you all a nice start to your week, hopefully. You guys are having a good Monday, and see you on the other side.